Alrighty, we might as well just get started then. Thank you everyone for joining us for our weekly Rocket Pool Community Twitter space. It is my turn to be hosting it, joined with the lovely Nick Astley, our community manager. Nick, how you doing?
Hello, good morning. Not too bad. How are you?
It's been good, it's my second week of med school now, and I have my first major exam coming up this Friday. So, been a bit out of the Rocket Pool ecosystem, but happy to be here with some pretty interesting IMC updates. Though I've been at med school, I've still been keeping up with the IMC.
That's good to hear. Although the thought of mid school and a week two exam is, at least for me, not good to hear. So good luck.
Uh, it,
Sounds
it's
scary.
it's pretty insane. I've already done four cadaver dissections. They really just get
What?
it going. Yeah, it's for it's fun, but we're not here to talk about medicine. This is a crypto podcast or Twitter space, and we have tons to discuss. So, in this conversation, we will be covering some IMC related updates, then moving on to some broader ecosystem updates, and then we will be concluding with some updates about the team. So, without further ado, let's get started with some updates from the IMC. So, the IMC, of course, stands for the Incentive Management Committee, and the IMC is largely tasked with distributing RPL to ensure liquidity for the rETH token. There have been a couple updates worth paying attention to recently. First off, Arbitrum announced a partnership with Aura, in which bribes paid in the hidden hand market, I believe, to incentivize liquidity on Balancer are going to be matched one-to-one with ARB tokens. This is a form of dual liquidity incentivization, so it is highly, highly efficient for participants. Balancer, of course, is a longtime partner of rETH, as one of the major Balancer pools is the rETH metastable pool, in which a portion of the rETH APR is actually used to bribe the pool itself. It's a self-referential pool that has so far performed exceedingly well. So with these new ARB tokens to build the exact same flywheel on Arbitrum, it's going to be pretty exciting. We're looking at up to 10K ARB tokens per period per pool. So with the standard rETH pool, you are already expecting at least, well, approximately a 2x increase in efficiency. And then we are also planning to increase the expenditure on Arbitrum overall because of this amazing opportunity.
It's pretty exciting stuff. Obviously, as we mentioned quite often on these calls, L2s are only going to be more and more important, and there are a few of them out there. And certainly think, at least for me, that Arbitrum is one worth paying attention. So yeah, good to see
Yeah.
the IMC doing something, as of course they always are behind the scenes. I guess it's the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
with the team, right? There's a lot of discussions, a lot of planning, a lot of strategy that goes on. Perhaps people don't see, but then when there is an opportunity like this, yeah, it's great.
It's going to be great to build TVL on Arbitrum and build liquidity, more importantly, to build upon the existing integrations that are there. Speaking of L2s and the proliferation of them, we have two new rollups that are in the repertoire for rETH liquidity. They are Polygon Era and ZK Era, Polygon EVM, ZK EVM, and ZK Sync Era. Too many rollups to keep track of. Both of these ZK rollups, the IMC has just started incentivizing liquidity, again, using the Balancer metastable pool. And this is in the aims of, expanding the footprint across L2s that are look like they're going to be the next major thing. ZK rollups are incredibly efficient and pose or pretend to be incredibly efficient going into the future. So establishing rETH liquidity there now is in the best interest of the protocol, especially Polygon Special big shout out to Polygon team as they started incentivizing before we ourselves were ready to match that incentive back. But we are now ready, and we are using the hidden hand aura market to bribe on both networks.
That's certainly one. The ZK Sync era where there's been a steady trickle of people popping into Discord and asked when ZK Sync era, because obviously we had that announcement a little while ago now about rETH being available, but it's one thing to have an asset available. Obviously, the whole point of an L2 is to have your assets there and transact and stay on the L2, at least for some certain period of time, rather than necessarily bridging rETH across from mainnet. So yeah, obviously liquidity is going to power the usage of rETH on ZK Sync era.
Yeah, it was a bit unfortunate we couldn't get the incentives out in time for the original ZK Sync era announcement. However, we wanted to approach the ZK rollups with a cohesive plan rather than doing it piecewise. And so once we had figure out what we wanted between ZK Sync era and Polygon ZK EVM, that's what we wanted in place. And then we managed that, and now the incentives will be going live very shortly once the bribe window passes. I believe it's about a 2-week delay before the incentives start kicking in. So if you are out on one of the ZK rollups, farming airdrops, or just having a good old time, look out for those incentives. Still on the topic of L2s, we have a future L2 looking out ahead of time for some incentivization. That is, of course, Scroll. Scroll is a ZK rollup that's honestly very Ethereum community aligned, and has tried to, L2s are not my specialty, but to my understanding, build the most Ethereum compatible, EVM compatible rollup. Vitalik has a piece describing the different types of ZK rollups and how equivalent they are to Ethereum Geth itself. And it is my understanding that Scroll is trying to sort of mimic the base layer as best as possible. In that sense, Rocket Pool being incredibly aligned with the Ethereum ecosystem, we respond well to that on the IMC. And we also respond very well to them being proactive and reaching out to us. So while there's nothing been decided yet about Scroll, and I don't believe Scroll mainnet is out yet, or the date is even live, but it definitely bodes well for that potential mainnet live incentivization. Who knows?
I can't say I have anything to add about Scroll itself, but I've certainly seen them around and being mentioned on the Bird app.
Yeah.
See if I can hang on to that phrase for a little while longer. But yeah, as you say, I certainly recall Kane mentioning at least a couple of times the ease or lack thereof when it comes to working with some of these L2s. It's not as straightforward as you might think. Having something, that's kind of built on Ethereum mainnet, and you would think most, if not everything, would transfer over, but especially when it comes to zero knowledge proofs and that kind of side of things. Apparently, it's not so straightforward. So, I feel like Scroll's definitely one to look out for in that regard.
The ZK rollups definitely run the whole gamut of EVM equivalents. I mean, we even have Starknet, which I believe completely eschews the EVM for their own Cairo-based language. So yeah, it's interesting seeing the whole spectrum of L2s, and we definitely on the IMC have a limited budget, so we can't support every L2. However, being Ethereum aligned is definitely a good thing to have in your pocket for an eventual outreach for funding from the IMC. Another L2 that I would love to see the Rocket Pool IMC venture into is the public goods network. The public goods network takes some of the sequencer, I believe all of the sequencer fees, and uses it to donate to public goods. Um, since sequencer fees are largely MEV, and MEV is generally toxic, the ability to redirect that flow towards something that's positive sum is pretty awesome.
Is that a good point to segue into a discussion that took place in Paris at ECC about MEV?
That's right. It was a pretty big discussion, and this is one that's been ongoing for a little while now, but that is on MEV burn. Justin Drake did a fantastic presentation on uh, the state of MEV and some of the potential externalities or effects of implementing MEV burn. MEV burn refers to the idea of instead of MEV going to the validators of the network, we instead burn it like we do with transaction fees, a la EIP 1559. There is a ton of stuff or ideas that go into this. Uh, for Rocket Pool, at first, it might seem like burn is a negative. If you've been keeping track of the smoothing pool recently, you have seen many ETH flow in from these MEV bundles recently. Today and yesterday being especially large MEV heavy days. However, it's not all roses MEV. MEV ultimately comes from extraction of value from people who don't want to have that value bled from them. If you've ever used CowSwap, you would have occasionally seen your order get better pricing after the fact than you expected, whereas it would have otherwise resulted in you losing out on that money. It's this invisible tax on users that is just an inherent detriment to the Ethereum network. So we burned the MEV instead of having it go to the validators who are currently incentivized to maximize MEV. We might see an overall decrease in the amount of MEV that is attempted. More importantly for Rocket Pool is that we are kind of on the smaller side. MEV is absurdly tail heavy. Last year, I believe the largest block was over 700 ETH as part of a hack. It went to Lido, of course. Many of the largest blocks ever have gone to Lido simply because they have approximately a 33% network penetration. 33% network penetration enables them to get more of the tail end than smaller players. Justin Drake had a phenomenal statistic that the average MEV block was 3 times larger than the median block. If that's the case, that must mean that the tail end is incredibly fat. Then a large chunk of the value is in the absolute rarest blocks. This again has been proven out by these 700 ETH MEV blocks that Lido has gotten. So if it was then burned instead, we would see an evening of the playing field. Lido's economies of scale would be less impactful, given that it is no longer useful at capturing the lottery blocks. Additionally, Justin Drake notes that MEV burn is something that would de-risk permissionless staking protocols that use bonded collateral. Since Rocket Pool has ETH bond, a large part of that calculus is around MEV and the ability of users to steal MEV and drain value from the protocol. If the MEV was instead burned, there's nothing to steal, and the calculation flips on its head. Justin Drake noted that this would enable Rocket Pool to lower its collateral, but not really enable Lido to lower its collateral, since they use social collateral rather than economic collateral. So this talk was pretty long, but really informative, and I think incredibly bullish for the Rocket Pool ecosystem.
I have to agree with you there. Obviously, Rocket Pool putting safety and security of the protocol's development at number one has meant that the drop of collateral has progressed maybe a little bit slower than it could be, but it's important to ensure that there's an adequate amount of collateral for worst case scenarios. Obviously, previously having the 16 ETH, now dropping down to 8 ETH with, I guess, what we used to call LEB8s. This means that potentially maybe 4, maybe 2, who knows? It could very quickly unlock that potential, but also to be able to unlock it in a safe and secure manner, which is easy, which is obviously very important, and otherwise not easy to do. I guess like a lot of development in the space, it's all very well to launch something and have it look a-okay, but until you get that trial by fire, it's hard to know. And Rocket Pool's always decided to err on the side of caution. That's kind of a reflection of the long-term view and the focus of sustainable development rather than rushing to get something out and potentially having it backfire. So yeah, something to look forward to. And this certainly, I feel the pace at which the core Ethereum protocol has been developing recently, pretty optimistic that potentially this solution might be maybe implemented sooner than people think. I have no idea when that might be in terms of a date, but certainly something that we'll keep a very close eye on. I wonder if actually maybe that's another segue, but I wonder if the Rocket Pool team will have an opportunity to meet up and chat with Justin Drake about this in person. We are planning out, I guess, the rest of the year between now and Denver, essentially, in terms of what other Ethereum events and conferences we may attend around the world.
It's a pretty interesting culture, the conference nature of Ethereum development. It's like half of it is done online on ETH Researcher, but then a large amount of it is done at these conferences, and a lot of knowledge is shared and partnerships developed there. So very interested to hear where the team is going with that. But yeah,
maybe we can get to that later on.
yeah. Continuing on with some REMC related topics. Recently, rETH had its Chainlink Oracle go live on Optimism. This is a pretty big unlock because just like on mainnet, the Chainlink Oracle is the gatekeeper to a whole skew of DeFi integrations, essentially all of them. I'm not going to lie. Optimism already has relatively deep rETH liquidity because of the Optimism and token incentives, as well as some co-incentives that we on the IMC have been providing. So I highly expect in the coming weeks to see just a deluge of updates from Mav on the Lassie Orange Lassie on Twitter about Optimism integrations for rETH. It's really feeling like a Rocket Pool L2 summer is brewing as we get just this huge wave of integrations going live. Optimism, the main one to be on the lookout for now is Aave for that really juicy recursive lending situation.
There's certainly been a few protocols on Optimism who've reached out and we've had initial discussions and they're awaiting that price feed. So chase them up and see where they're at with their integration of rETH.
Yeah, it's always been the evil gatekeeper of DeFi, honestly, Chainlink. But hopefully we move away from it in the future. Another IMC related topic, RPL is maxed out on Aave on mainnet. You can no longer deposit any RPL into the Aave deposit pool. Full pool is closed. It's incredible to see this adoption as people obviously really trust Aave. It's one of the oldest and most hardened protocols on Ethereum. And the flywheel that has been constructed between Aave and Rocket Pool is kind of breathtaking. And I don't think people have properly come to grips with how pivotal this could be for Rocket Pool moving forward. essentially, you can now borrow RPL on Aave and pay a smaller fee, pay just the borrow fee to get the RPL staking income, and also just to unlock the high ETH APR from the Rocket Pool nodes. This is pivotal because it now unhinges the traditional system of speculator and node operator, but doesn't remove the requirement of both parties existing. In essence, it's kind of like a modularization of the Rocket Pool protocol. Users who either don't have enough RPL to run a node or are max speculative and don't want ETH exposure can get some APR from Aave, while people who are RPL bearish or perhaps just want to increase the amount of RPL of stake they can have to take advantage of the gap between borrow cost and RPL APR are happy to take the loans out. So overall, I want to say this is an expansion of the Rocket Pool total addressable market while just bolstering the existing tokenomics. I think this is being borne out from the fact that 20,000 RPL has been borrowed and millions USD worth have been deposited.
Personal note, I'm a little bit disappointed because it was on my list to check out on the weekend. I got a bit of stable coins to move around, and I thought, depending what Gas is doing, maybe I'll check out this Aave thing. But obviously, that aside, it's great to see in what I think is a matter of days that it was maxed out. So yeah, great signs.
Hey, shout out to Gwar, one of the funniest, most interesting Twitter accounts. There they go. Bye, Gwar.
That didn't last long. I thought we had VIP on the space. Oh well.
Well, I guess Kobe didn't want to come chat with us. Anyway, that pretty much covers the IMC portion of this call. Now we will be moving into some just rather general Rocket Pool ecosystem topics. So first on, I want to give everyone a warning that there was a bug found in AMD-based processors that if you were using a virtual private server to run your node, would allow your private key to be viewed by other people using the VPS. So again, if you are using a VPS, make sure they're not using AMD Intel, and if they are using AMD Intel, make sure they have updated to a patched version of their firmware. And also just stop using a VPS and run bare metal.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that's the main takeaway from this. There was a bit of discussion about it I'm not sure if it was in training, but certainly in Discord, a few people popping in to ask questions. As I understand it, there were no reports of it being exploited yet, but it is out there in the public domain, the knowledge. So if this is applicable to you, it's I assume doesn't cost anything to reach out to the provider and double check. I guess the worst case, because of the way that Rocket Pool's set up, having a specified withdrawal address means that the node's principal will not be affected, but potentially any other assets sitting on the node wallet, any rewards that have accrued could be at risk. So certainly something worth following up on.
Absolutely. And if you want more info about it, you can find links to it in the ping server for those of you in the know. So the staking directory reached out to Rocket Pool in the Discord about their dashboard that they built. They also posted on Twitter about it, and they've got pretty good feedback. The staking directory is a platform that evaluates different LSTs and I believe also just general staking options. They have a node operator section in which Rocket Pool and Stater are included. So we love to see better educational tools come under development, and we love that they reached out to our community to improve their own product. Our community loves to shout at things that are wrong about us, so I'm sure they got tons of helpful feedback.
I'm trying to think back when I first heard about Staking Directory, but it was a little while ago, and I assume at the time they must have still been building out their dashboard. There are a growing number of dashboards out there that kind of support liquid staking in one way or another, but this feels like one that's genuinely useful. It's kind of a bit of a combination of data sources that you might have to track down from various websites like the Ethereum.org staking pool site with their
Yeah, that's the
different
best one.
attribute indicators, I think they call them. And yeah, of course, when the staking directory person jumped into Discord, they got a ton of great and helpful feedback. Staking is maybe not as straightforward as it may seem if you're comparing it to complex and mysterious DeFi protocols. Staking's still pretty complicated, and there's a lot of things to consider. So it was great to see the feedback not only both given and received. Of course, there are some very smart people in the Rockable Discord that know a lot about staking. So yeah.
I think Rocket Pool is a perfect encapsulation of the iceberg meme, because you can be just like a really casual DeFi person holding rETH, or you could be a giga whale node operator with their sophisticated MEV setups, running like multiple servers, and we have people all along the spectrum. It's crazy.
Sure do. Anyone can be a node operator.
Yep. So Nexus Mutual made a pretty big splash when they minted, I believe, 14,000 rETH in one trade, $27 million through the auspices of CowSwap. Thanks to Rocket Pool's phenomenal liquidity, honestly, they had very little slippage on this trade. And this is just another one in a line of treasuries who are doing the really rational thing and diversifying their stake. It's simply irrational to hold just one LST, especially if that LST is 33% of the network and has half the core devs shouting against it. There is definitely tail risk there that you ought to hedge. Nexus Mutual being an insurance protocol, maybe people should pay attention to what the insurance protocol does with its treasury, allocating a substantial amount to Rocket Pool.
If you go onto Rocket Scan, the deposit pool page, scroll down a little bit, you can see the deposits by date, and most days have a trickle of a few hundred ETH coming in, and then you've got on the I think it was the 21st, about a week or so ago, the 14,406, which is obviously the total for that day. Not all of that was necessarily Nexus Mutual, but yeah, it was good to see the CowSwap routing sent a good chunk to the deposit pool, and then the balance was fulfilled through secondary markets. So yeah, great to kind of close the loop on that, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to see a little bit more in the future. Some of the DAO members and community members have been doing some great work reaching out to these different DAOs and protocols to, I guess, in some cases, educate or suggest that either de-risking, as you've said, Jasper, or when we're talking about ETH, kind of putting it to work, securing the blockchain, helping to keep Ethereum incredibly neutral and free of censorship.
Absolutely. The community has done a tremendous job. And if you're interested in participating, you can learn more in the DAO Treasury Outreach thread on the Discord. Also in DeFi-related news, Kuji, I believe, is a protocol that is now LPing both OP, the OP token, and Velo against rETH. I believe this is on the Optimism network. And so if you are have some idle ETH there, or are ETH there, perhaps check it out.
I guess why this one is noteworthy is it just seems to be something that they've gone and just done themselves. I picked it up on the Bird app, and they hadn't kind of reached out in the past to discuss it. They're, I guess, within that project, there is already some knowledge about liquid staking, knowledge about Rocket Pool. So it was great to see that really organic development.
That's awesome. It's one of the IMC's goals is to do uh, jumpstart incentives where we will provide RPL to projects to do pairs like this, where it's like a volatile pair against rETH, with the idea of that protocol going on to just using rETH and that pair going forward because it's simply more capital efficient than using vanilla ETH in the LP. So it's awesome to see this just happening in the wild. They definitely did not approach the IMC either. It seems like this is just a genuinely uh, wild, rational decision to LP with rETH, which is awesome to see. So I hear that Langers was on a podcast recently from First Digital. Could you tell us about that?
Sorry. Yeah, so if you're wanting to tune in, um, it is mentioned on the First Digital Twitter account, which is at First Digital HQ. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see links to the podcast. There's Google, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, etc. So this was put out a couple of days ago. Um, and yeah, the kind of tagline that they've used is obviously Langers was on there and he was talking about how bear markets drive innovation and especially in liquid staking. Certainly have to agree with that. If you think over the past several months, it's been a tough time for the wider industry, but liquid staking has certainly been an outlier in a good way.
Yeah, there was a post earlier today by a user, Thor, I don't know his last name, but he put up a graph that showed the TVL of Rocket Pool overlaid with the token price and just a very interesting divergence that occurred right at Atlas where the TVL took off, but the price did not catch up. And of course, not financial advice, but it's just interesting that Thor notes to take notice of these divergences because they're not common. Usually, when you see a large uptick in TVL, it's usually associated with a narrative that increases flows to the token. However, as is very clearly demonstrated by the first third of this call, uh, the Rocket Pool ecosystem is exploding, and it will continue to explode for many, many months to come. So while there may be this current discrepancy between TVL and token, uh, I don't suspect it to last forever, as the core team has been building uh, dogmatically. The community has been doing community things with like the DAO Treasury outreaches. Uh, the GMC has been getting up to speed, and the IMC has, in my opinion, been doing phenomenally across the entire ecosystem. So the stars seem to be aligning, even in the midst of a bear market.
That Twitter account was quite influential, if I recall correctly. It is interesting to see. I think it was a DeFi Llama chat, right, that he had up to see that play out.
Yeah, yeah. It was not fun to see a recent attempted scam using the likeness of the Rocket Pool team. It was pretty damn funny, though. So, if you're not aware, this is the scam protocol, and I repeat, scam OX Boost, which used uh, the better version of the Rocket Pool team. Uh, uh, I gotta say, Whack did a phenomenal recap on this. Uh, and Superfizz also had a hilarious post. But the TLDR is this OX Boost protocol scam has previously attempted to just use the images of the team and some of the wording from the website to try to get people to lose all their money. Uh, but yeah, they like slightly change names or pictures, and it's It's just hilarious to see the outcomes. Do you have a favorite?
Well, I certainly like the fact that my my photo was used for the CTO position, where Dave would be on our not that we really have an org chart, but on the team page. So maybe I had to get around to asking mainers for a raise because of how clearly well I guess I represent Rocket Pool. But the whole thing was honestly pretty surreal. It was unfortunately another 1 a.m. Australia time event where I got a DM on Telegram, and then there was a message in Discord, which I guess no one picked up on, but it caught my attention. And essentially, there were a couple of people reaching out, a bit unsure as to what was going on. I mean, the whole point about reusing our photos, I'm not sure why you would do that, because either a photo is a photo. If someone doesn't recognize it, it could be any photo. But if someone is involved with the ecosystem, they may very well be able to pick up, I've seen these guys around. And that's obviously a pretty big red flag. So it was another bit of a long night for me. I was just a bit concerned as to what the end game was, whether it was some kind of attempt to like tie the protocols together. Thankfully, our friends at ETHStaker helped to put out an announcement about it. And for my part, I scrolled back through their Twitter account, found some fake press releases that they had put out, and contacted the media sites and managed to get a couple taken down already. So I don't know if the website's still up. Obviously, repeating what Jasper said, we are talking about a scam protocol, so do not interact with it at all. I was tossing up 50-50 whether to change my name on Discord to, I forget what they had used, because they jumbled up everyone's names as well, invented some new ones, I think reused some first and last names. But then I thought, there may be someone out there who doesn't kind of catch on to the jokes. So, but another very interesting night for me dealing with that.
It's awful, but it seems like scams are like reaching their zenith. It's all-time high in scams. The Twitter replies are filled with fake ads, fake airdrops, scam protocols popping up all the time. The Discord was attacked. Seems like the bear market has brought out the scams to their full force because now they're desperate. I'm assuming because they don't have easy retail pickings.
Yeah, that's true, actually. I never really thought of it that way. I kind of was thinking maybe there's going to be an uptick in the future, not necessarily from the bear bull market dynamic, but just as more ETH gets staked, as liquid staking becomes more and more popular, maybe it is an easy target because as an idea and as a way to kind of put your ETH to work, it may seem a bit more straightforward than say other things in the DeFi world. You either just deposit your ETH or swap for rETH in Rocketpool's case. So with the whole point of staking being a relatively straightforward and safe way to help to secure Ethereum and also earn a return, maybe it makes for a natural target, especially with the amount of attention that staking continues to get within the ecosystem. And yeah, as we know, it's all too easy, unfortunately, to spin up some content that looks at least partially believable on a first pass. So yeah, be safe out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Crypto does not solve phishing. Billions of dollars are lost in the TradFi system from phishing, and maybe account abstraction and like multi-signers signing accounts, so multi-signing wallets will help, but we're not there yet. So treat everything with extreme skepticism. Verify, don't trust. So with that, I think we can move on to some more Rocket Pool core team specific updates. Uh, so could you give us a little update on how our new hire Grant is doing?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm bringing Run into the various calls that we have with protocols who reach out or who we approach. You always get a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to these calls, but at the very least, they are an interesting and valuable kind of learning opportunity, seeing what's out there, seeing how different protocols approach BD. So that's continuing on later today. We've got a call with an exchange coming up, and yeah, it's been what is it, three weeks, maybe just a bit over 3 weeks for Grant. So still kind of learning the ropes. Obviously, there is a lot of depth and lore to Rocket Pool, but he will be joining us as a guest on one of our Twitter Spaces soon. TM. We have a guest for next week, and we've got a protocol coming on. I believe I've already loaded that into the event section on Discord. And I think the week after we also potentially have one too. So maybe it's 3 weeks time or so. We'll get Grant on and do kind of a guest feature like I had when I joined the team. And as we've talked about, as you mentioned, Jasper, the first third of this call, talking about everything that's happening in the Rocket Pool ecosystem, things aren't slowing down. And again, if we're talking about market cycles and maybe an uptick in the future, I'm sure that will see with it a surge in activity, and can only imagine how many requests we're probably going to be getting in the future to work with Rocket Pool, especially as our TVL and prominence continues to climb. Potentially, we're going to get out of the kind of 9th, 10th spot by TVL where we are now and climb even higher. So BD is only going to be up only, I think, in the future.
In a lot of ways, it's pretty remarkable how far Rocket Pool has come in terms of TVL and what it's accomplished with barely any traditional business development roles. Of course, Darren and you and Dave have done business development in various capacities as part of like a shared hats system, and I as well. But I believe Grant is the first truly BD specific hire. Uh, it's just incredible to see how far we've come and how much demand remains to be untapped in the future when the bull market surely returns.
BD has been highly decentralized, let's put it that way. Up until now, as you said, split between three, I guess, of the team members plus anyone else who kind of wants to chip in, whether it's a DAO member or a community member, reaching out, engaging on the Bird app, talking to some of these DAOs and other protocols.
It's really been permissionless business development, and it's worked quite
pretty
well.
much.
Yeah. One last thing to know on the Grant thing is I think it's quite serendipitous that he started 3 weeks ago, and this is my third week of med school. So a nice little handoff there.
Yeah, true, actually. The stars kind of aligned with that timing.
So you mentioned that the Rocket Pool team is looking forward to some events in the future and is thinking about which ones to attend. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so historically, Rocket Pool has attended the odd event and conference, but it's been really biased more towards the technical development side. Ethember earlier in the year was our first, I guess, more marketing community focused event, and that's part of a wider strategy to increase our presence at these kind of events. Probably the major drawback actually is Australia, and specifically Brisbane. It is not easy to get out of that part of the world up to the northern hemisphere where most of these events take place. I think the first event that it was Langers and Kane that attended. I think DevCon Columbia, right? And their itinerary. To be fair, I think this was still during the tail end of COVID, but they had to fly up into the US and transit. And I think from memory, they came back via New York or something. Uh, Obviously, on the one hand, these kind of tickets are not cheap, but also the time cost and the kind of energy drain is quite considerable as well. So yeah, Denver again. That was a little bit of a challenge for us connecting up through Vancouver. As my flight landed, it started to snow. By the time the rest of the guys got there, it was snowing even more, and their flight was delayed. And
Wow.
yeah, just not an easy experience. So we're looking at all the various events. It seems nearly every city these days has an Ethereum event in it, um, but there's certainly different variations on it. We were considering ECC in Paris, probably a little bit late to that one. The strategy is still evolving, and we'll refine it over time. Historically, we've been at kind of one extreme of event attendance where the the presence has been quite limited, and your average protocol is probably, I would say, too far to the other end. I've certainly talked to some BD and marketing people that seem that they're almost permanently on the road, going to every Ethereum insert name here event throughout the world, and I don't know. I struggle to see whether there is value
You have
in that kind of
you
extreme
have
team
to think about
attendance.
you have to think about the macro, mate.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but moving on. We, we were quite thankful um, to see that Token 2049 in Singapore and Ethereum Singapore are coming up also shockingly soon, but adjacent and just a short 10 or so, 10 hours, maybe less, 9, 8, direct flight from Brisbane, which means it is going to be easier, quicker, and cheaper to get some attendance there. So we're right now working through what our attendance and presence would be like, if any. I feel like there's a decent chance that some of the team, I think Joe's going to have to stay back in the US, but some of the team will attend. We're not sure whether it will involve kind of booths and a whole lot of community presence like East Denver. We've heard some pretty good things about uh, other TradFi companies and different protocols that are attending Singapore. Singapore itself is one of the more progressive countries when it comes to um, blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. You know, we're not talking El Salvador levels, but in the wider context, they are, and I think also just in general, open to at least evaluate things. So whether the Singapore Stock Exchange representatives from Temasek, the government's investment arm, are going to be in attendance.
That
Yeah, it may
would be
be a
pretty interesting.
worthwhile showing up for that kind of more um, BD side interaction with the traditional financial world. We had considered Masari Mainnet in New York, which I think is in September as well, not too long after Singapore, but decided to pass on that one. Um, I think that event would have fulfilled a similar role to Singapore. Arguably, New York is, well, far more central if you're talking US, Europe, and perhaps the tune-up would have been better, but just kind of weighing up the pros and cons. Singapore seemed to stand out, but that's not the end of it. We're also looking at potentially getting to Istanbul. I
Ooh,
know
interesting.
friends again at East Staker have something going on in there. So that is I think November from memory. So we've got a little bit more time to plan that out. But yeah, I think it's a week, isn't it, of Dev Connect, and Assemble, again, not so easy to get to, but this one might be worth the investment. And then I guess we've got, looking a little bit further ahead, Ethereum again, which we intend to attend. And from memory, I think it was early August that we started looking at Denver. So that is just a few days away. So I feel like I'm going to get even busier planning out these events. So again, good timing to have Grant coming along to take on some of that BD work. And then later into next year, I think towards the end of Q1 was mentioned, DevCon itself, which was bumped out from this year, is going to be in Southeast Asia. So that's perfect. Ton of direct flights out of Australia. Brisbane's really close, I think. Yeah, very low cost.
End of Q1 puts us probably right in the middle of the Den Kun narrative arc, the post 480, 48, 44, the following Ethereum hard fork, which is, in my opinion, going to be the second LST narrative bull run. Mainly because of the whole slew of EIPs that will be beneficial to LST protocols.
Yeah, it would just be like 2023 all over again, maybe.
Yeah.
But
so
yeah,
getting two conferences at that time period, right around when such an important EIP for liquid stake protocols is being developed, would be huge for the team to be involved with.
Yeah, we were chatting on a stand-up recently that we have to maybe do a little bit better job deconflicting releases and development work with event attendance. Obviously, there was a little bit of overlap with ETH Denver earlier in the year. I keep wanting to go and say last year for Denver because it seems that long ago, but it really wasn't.
Was it this year?
I think so, right? Wasn't it March?
That sounds right, actually. Yeah, no, it was March.
Yeah.
It was March. Yep.
Wild. But yeah, it was all right in the end. But if we can kind of plan things out a little bit better, it can be easier for everyone involved. And this kind of, I suppose, is a reflection of broader quote unquote marketing and I guess going more into comms strategies that are being fleshed out as Grant takes over more of the BD workload, freeing me up. Something I've wanted to push for some time now, and we've already talked a lot about the new website, some of the design work that Sleedy's going to be looking at doing, and this all feeds into, I suppose, a bit of a refresh at how we look at external communications, which I'm really excited about. So yeah, watch this space. Not really much in the way of information to share right now on that, but maybe in a few weeks we can run through on one of these Twitter spaces and what that might look like.
I'm definitely looking forward to it. And with that, I think that just about covers the topics for today, unless you had anything else you want to discuss.
Oh, I have a couple of things. So Langers is speaking, I think it's in about 36 hours he's speaking to DeFi Toronto. He's presenting to them about Rocket Pool. I believe it's free for everyone to tune in. Let me just see if I can multitask and pull this up while I'm talking.
While you pull that up, actually, I just wanted to add, I misspoke earlier. ZK Sync Era, we have not started incentives because they do not have hand in hand. It is only on Polygon ZK Fiat. But as you were saying.
Here we go. Yeah, so it looks like it's free and there's 147 spots left. So if you want to request to join that discussion, I think Langers has about a 15-20 minute slot. I will, after this call, get the details of that loaded into the Discord event section and you can tune in. Probably won't be anything new to you. It's kind of an introductory level overview of the protocol, but feel free to tune in and support Langers, and then overnight we had a poll go out for Index Coop. They're building ICrETH, which is an rETH version of ICETH, which is essentially a leveraged rETH token that you can acquire and hold. And they want some feedback on what the design of that token might be. We are doing two informal votes. Probably about time to get the second one out. Actually, the first one, which is ongoing now, is to pick the design, and the second one to pick the color. You can find the poll in trading, but I feel like there's been a lot of comments since it was put out. So the easiest way to navigate to it is to go to the protocol announcement section and follow the link there. Or if you probably search Index Coop, you'll be able to bring it up. I did skim over. There was a little bit of subsequent discussion from between the Index Coop team and trading about. I think it was about the product itself. So if this concept is new to you, you want to do a bit of research first. That is probably not a bad idea to start as well. I think other than that, one last thing is another ECC, I guess, noteworthy announcement. I think it was an announcement. Was around Chainlink CCIP, which is their cross-chain interoperability protocol. I think that's what it stands for.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it looks like they have got a testnet going. They're working with Swift. So you may be aware that Swift is essentially responsible for moving money around the world. If you've made any kind of international money transfer, Swift's probably been involved at some point. And yeah, they are looking to, I suppose, increase the efficiency of moving funds around, potentially between blockchains, also between blockchains and traditional financial services. And yeah, we're having a bit of a chat with them about how everything's going and whether there's anything meaningful for Rocketpool to be involved in. So with that, I think I am all done.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that last point. Chainlink being the largest Oracle service is going to be hugely involved with LSTs, as LSTs are currently some of the major drivers of Oracle demand. So love to see that the CCIP team has been reaching out. But with that, that just about ends the call. So I will end us off with a summary of today's topics. We started off today with a broad update from the IMC, including a discussion about the ARB tokens on Balancer that will be on Arbitrum, the launch of Polygon ZK EVM incentives, the Scroll team reaching out to us in the Discord, the rETH Chainlink Oracle going live on Optimism, and the astounding performance of the RPL Aave integration. We also saw Kuji LPing OP and Velo against rETH. Moving that on further to the broader ecosystem, we talked about Justin Drake's talk at ETC about MEV Burn, the staking directory team reaching out about their dashboard, AMD having a bug that affected virtual private servers potentially, Nexus Mutual, a large insurance protocol with a massive treasury, diversified to rETH via CowSwap, a staggering $27 million. Langers was on a podcast from First Digital, which I highly recommend checking out. Unfortunately, the scam protocol, and I repeat, scam protocol, OX Boost, attempted to use the likeness of the Rocketpool team as part of their scam, but this was quickly thwarted by the good graces of the eStaker community as well as the RP team. We also discussed how the Rocketpool team is going to be approaching events in the latter half of this year. And then we also discussed how Grant has been progressing with the team. and how Chainlink is actually reaching out to discuss CCIP with the team. So tons of great updates. And really, if you're not bullish on the rocket pool ecosystem in the midst of this bear market before, I hope you are now.
All right, thanks,
All right.
Jasper, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
Catch you all next time. Cheers.